Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, I have a very unique conversation with Murry Gunty, founder and CEO of Black Bear Sports. Murry and his company own dozens of ice rinks, run many youth and girls hockey organizations, and own several junior hockey teams. Most importantly, Murry is trying to make major changes to improve the player and parent hockey experience all the way from learn to skate until college. And as you'll hear, he is not afraid to share his thoughts on what can be improved. Please enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Murry Gunty. Champs App is your recruiting and development copilot. Champs App helps athletes, coaches, parents, and agents/advisors navigate the world of youth sports. We recently completely redesigned Champs App so that all our offerings fit together seamlessly to dramatically improve the user experience. Next time you visit Champs App, you will see that it is much easier to use Champs App as your copilot for recruiting and development. While we will continue to provide free content and tools like podcasts, articles, and directories on our website, some new content will require a free Champs App account to access special analysis and information. We have made it easy to create a free Champs App account without the need to create an online profile. Our latest free tool is the Champs App Team Coach Directory, a powerful resource designed to simplify your search for D1, D3, and U Sports coaches in one convenient place. Whether you're a parent, player, or youth coach, our directory offers a seamless way to find, research, connect, or message coaches across women's college hockey. In addition, our first premium product has been the Champs App messaging tool, which is the fast, easy way to send error-free messages to coaches. Champs App messaging cuts the time to send emails to coaches by over 50%. Over the coming months, we will continue to offer additional premium tools and services to our community. We still have a long way to go to achieve all the big goals we have for Champs App. You will see new offerings being released over the coming months. So look out for more announcements on social media, in your email, and in the app. We look forward to helping you on your journey as your sports recruiting and development co-pilot. I'm very excited to have on the podcast Murry Gunty, who is the founder and CEO of Black Bear Sports Group and managing partner at Blackstreet Capital Holdings. Black Bear Sports Group owns, manages, and operates 37 ice rinks in 8 states, has 3 junior hockey teams, and runs Tier 1, Tier 2, and girls youth hockey clubs in those arenas. In addition, Black Bear operates tournaments, adult leagues, and the Atlantic Hockey Federation, Tier 1 Hockey Federation, and National Girls Hockey Leagues. Most importantly, Murry is a hockey and lacrosse dad and was a parent coach when his kids first started playing hockey. Welcome to the podcast, Murry.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this. I know you don't do a lot of these things, so I really appreciate you taking the time. Why don't we start off like we do all our guests? Just tell us how you developed your love for hockey, and and then obviously helping out your kids when they started to play.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Maine, and there were no rinks where I grew up, and we didn't have a ton of money, so I just skated on the ponds and played street hockey. And we had a minor league team back then, an affiliate of the Flyers, the Maine Mariners, and used to go to a lot of those games with my mother, and so that's really where it all started from.
Gotcha. And I'm just curious, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but one of your teams is the Maryland Black Bears. Is the Black Bears taken from your time being in Maine?
Yeah, the University of Maine at Orono was a little bit of a legend back when I was growing up. They had an incredible coach, a guy by the name of Sean Walsh, who has since passed away, and he brought great success to the Maine program up there, and a lot of distinguished alums. And Sean won national titles, and I'm still close with some of the people up there, including some of the coaches, and I just have a deep fondness for the state and just love going up there. It's just part of my blood. If you're from Maine or you spend a lot of time in Maine, you understand it's a different kind of place, and fiercely independent streak. That the only other state in the country that I think has a similar culture to it is Texas, maybe Alaska.
So a little frontier thinking, and
little frontier thinking,
and think that they march to the beat of a different drum than the rest of the country.
I can affirmatively say I march to a different drum.
Well, that's why you're here. So there's one big thing that you and I both have in common, which is our kids are much better hockey players than we are. So maybe just talk about, helping out your kids and developing your kids when they were playing hockey. I know you had one that plays hockey, another one that plays lacrosse, and I think a third that also played softball.
Yeah. we always looked at sports as an integral part of our kids' lives. Education was always number one, but sports were always 1A. I just had a strong belief, as did my wife. We've been married almost 30 years, that sports just keeps kids away from trouble and teaches them all the important lessons in life, really, outside of the classroom. And so we exposed our kids to every sport, and we just followed them, what their passion was. It was never about me. If it were up to me and my wife, they would have all been competitive golfers, but that just wasn't going to be the path for any of them, even though they were good golfers. They found their own love for the sports, and I just loved watching them play and compete and have fun with it. And so my daughter had a bunch of offers to play college softball, but she decided she'd had enough. And when she got to college, and then my middle one, just a fiercely competitive kid, and he loved hockey, but he was much better in lacrosse than he was in hockey. So he pursued that and had an amazing college career, albeit cut short by COVID. And then my younger one, was just born to be a hockey player, just physically and mentally, everything about him. He's just born to be a hockey player. And so we have good fortune that he's going to start Division I college hockey this fall.
So congratulations on that. I know it's a big deal, and I'm sure you can't wait to go to the games.
Can't wait. We had a very special journey. He was on our Clark Cup championship team in Youngstown, and had a pretty meaningful role after a very, very difficult and long injury during that year. And it was one of the more special moments in our lives, and we look forward to great experiences in college.
Gotcha. So wasn't planning on asking this question, but since you just brought this up, maybe just talk about the nonlinear path, as a parent of watching your kid go through the recruiting process, because, everybody thinks, everybody else it's so easy for everybody else, but everyone's individual story is actually pretty challenging.
Yeah. Look, you would think given my business, that it would be an easy path for my son. And it was a very, very hard path for him, just like for everybody else. The coaches are motivated by success on their teams, and whatever the right fit is for them. They don't really care who the parents are. And so, he had some ups and downs in his career. We always took it year by year. That was the approach my wife and I took. And at any given point in time, if he wanted to stop playing, that could have been part of the process. But each year he got better and better and better and grew as a player. And we eventually found a great fit for him this past season.
Right. And so I'm sure you're pretty proud as a parent of the resilience your son showed going through this entire process to end up on the other side of this in a great spot. So, all right, let's move on to kind of more the business side of hockey, and help me understand what made you want to get involved in kind of the business of hockey.
Sure. So my main business for the past 25 years has been fixing troubled companies. That's what I sort of cut my teeth on, really, most of my 35 year business career. And along the way, my guy by the name of Steve Dubinsky, former NHL player, brought me the idea of making an investment in a company called Super Series, a tournament business. And I did it really just as a lark with my own money for fun, thought it'd be an interesting ride. That gave me my first exposure. That's going back 12, 13 years ago. And like a lot of nutty hockey parents, I started, when my kids were playing, I thought I knew better, and started looking around at buying hockey rinks, and started to poke around at a few. And believe it or not, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about an ice rink in Chicago that was in trouble, had too much debt, and was going into foreclosure. And I started to ask people about it and about the industry, and everybody said the hockey rink business is a terrible business. And the minute you say that to me, I get excited. And so I bought the first one, and then we bought another and another, and we were kind of content just owning a few. And I had a couple of great friends and advisors who said, don't end up owning 7 or 8 of these things and not having a plan. So back around, I don't know, 2016, 17, I just went and created a business plan, and business plan hasn't changed terribly much since then. And COVID really turbocharged things because of our distressed background. When things really got bleak in April and May of 2020, and we were losing a fortune, right? We had at the time we had 13 ice rinks and they were all closed, and we're losing tremendous amount of money every month. I called up some of my closest advisors and investors, and I said, we're going to go all in on this thing. Are you guys okay with it? And they said, yeah. So we doubled our size during COVID, which was quite a leap of faith. And then from there, things have sort of mushroomed. And so it was I wish I could say I sat down and said, back in 2015, we're going to build Black Bear, but life doesn't usually work that way. It's a series of immense luck and meeting the right people, taking a little bit of a risk, and just, I'll say it again, just, you have to have a little bit of luck on your side. Otherwise things don't work out for you.
Well, definitely taking a page out of Warren Buffett's playbook of taking advantage of when there's an undervalued asset and taking, and if you had the cash on hand or the ability to finance it like you did, so pretty good. And I've been to that rink in Chicago, I believe Seven Bridges rink. That's my son's played some tournaments there as well. So now running a rink is really hard. And it's hard. What's even harder about it, forget the economic side of things, it's hard to make all the stakeholders happy, because it's like an elephant. Whichever piece of the elephant that they're touching, that's what they think the whole elephant is like. Whether you're a figure skater or the men's and women's hockey, adult leagues, or public skating or high school athletes, like everybody thinks that they're not getting the best experience that they could, and they all lead that back to ownership. So maybe just talk about like the challenges of running a rink and why you've done that successfully, or how you've done that successfully.
Well, the number one reason why I've done it successfully is I don't run any of our rinks. I have great people who run the rinks. I'm not sure I have the temperament to run an individual rink and do it well. Early in my career, I had some experiences with similar business models. For lack of a better term, the daycare business and some of the elder care businesses that I used to run, where you have a similar model where the customer and the consumer are different. So the customer is the parent and the consumer is the child. And so you really have to make both of them happy, particularly on the hockey side. And then you have all these other constituents, like you said, who have competing needs. They all want the same thing. They want ice during a certain period of time, during a certain time of year. What I think, and we've got a really great team who kind of make sure that we don't make bad decisions. I think the most important thing is you got to have a little bit of a give and take with everybody, and you have to have a thick skin. Our number one asset is, as I like to say, our passionate and enthusiastic parents, and our number one liability is our passionate and enthusiastic parents. And so, most businesses in the world would be thrilled to have a customer base as enthusiastic as our customer base, that is willing to do what they do on behalf of their kids. Our business is predominantly youth hockey. It doesn't exist without figure skating, and it doesn't exist without high school hockey, and it doesn't exist without a lot of other things. But at the end of the day, the lion's share of the revenue inside of a hockey rink is youth hockey, and we're blessed with extraordinarily passionate, dedicated, really parents at the end of the day, and family members who take on a sport that is so expensive and so difficult to manage for your kids. And in most markets in the country, with the exception of maybe Minnesota and Massachusetts, and even there, it's still a massive commitment. But you start talking about California, where you're from, or Maryland, where I'm from, I mean, it is a major financial and time commitment. And so all the wonderful benefits that come from it also come with a lot of sacrifices. And so, as hard as it is, it's actually quite easy, because your customers, the demand is, as we like to say, inelastic. I mean, they want to play. They will do almost anything. And we saw that during COVID. They were willing to do just about anything to make sure their kids are on the ice, because they believe in the sport so much.
Gotcha. And just to clarify something, when you say that, like figure skating and high school hockey and public skates, youth hockey wouldn't exist without them, is that just around ice utilization and that they're paying for ice, or why is that?
No, I mean, you have to think about the pyramid of youth hockey. And, if you want to put the NHL on top or college hockey on top, but that's not really my world. I don't really operate in that world at all. I operate in the world of junior and below. And so if you put junior hockey on the top of our pyramid and you work your way down to AAA hockey and then AA and A and, house hockey and the like, it all starts at the end of the day with a birthday party or a public skate in our rink. right? Like people don't come out of the womb and say, I want to go play AAA hockey. They come out and they go to a birthday party or they go to a public skate and they have a good experience and they say, hey, I like this skating thing. And then, you know, we're lucky we have we have in every one of our rinks, we have someone who's dedicated to be a growth of the game specialist. It's frequently our figure skating instructor, though not always, our head figure skating instructor. And they will make sure they fill our learn to skate classes out of these public skates and birthday parties. And if you don't have a robust and healthy learn to skate program, and it starts with freestyle as well, because you don't have figure skating instructors if you don't have freestyle programs and you know, figure skating people in your building. And so if you have a strong learn to skate program, then it works its way up to learn to play and house and mites and on to travel programs. So literally the ecosystem is all tied completely together. Now, high school hockey is its own separate ecosystem. It consumes ice that frequently nobody else wants, but it brings extraordinary energy to the building. If you go to a high school hockey game, you know, forget about Minnesota or Massachusetts, just even northern New Jersey, you go to a high school hockey game on a Friday or Saturday night in northern New Jersey. I mean, you could have 1,000, 1,500 people at one of these games, and it makes the hockey rink something more like a community center than just a hockey rink. So all of these things create excitement around playing the sport and learning to skate. So everything is tied together.
Gotcha. So I'm from Canada, and we had a lot of municipally run rinks, and I still see them when I go back to Canada with my kids, and they're phenomenal. Like, you get somebody who cares about the outdoor rinks or even the indoor rinks, and they are so well taken care of. And obviously, you mentioned Minnesota, something similar model in Minnesota, but it doesn't work like that as well elsewhere in the country. Maybe just what is your perspective on for-profit versus municipally run rinks? What are the pros and cons of each, especially based on geography?
Yeah, look, I think there's a place for both. But the only way a not-for-profit model works is if you have a community that really believes in the business of ice rinks. And so you need a community that's fine with losing money, because the vast majority of community rinks in the United States lose quite a bit of money. We've bought or leased a number of rinks from communities that got tired of losing money. And so in Minnesota, the reason why it works so well is it's just what everybody does, right? The way, you've got the background there, Youngstown Phantoms. Everybody in Northeastern Ohio plays football, and Friday night in Northeastern Ohio is Friday Night Lights. It's 5,000 people, 7,000 people going to a high school football game. That's a culture that's part of the community, same way high school hockey is in Minnesota. It doesn't exist that way in Maryland. And so it's hard for the community to get behind the investment required to have the scale of community ice rinks and the operating losses associated with it. And then you go to the operating side of a community ice rink, you need a lot of volunteers, because there's, in a community-based rink model, you're not going to have typically a big club that's going to have the ice time needed to have paid employees for that. And so it just takes a culture that's a little bit different. Where that exists, it works very, very well. Where that doesn't exist, that's where for-profit rinks tend to have a much greater foothold. There are a lot of things we do very well, and there are a lot of things that community rinks do very well. So I think there's a place for both.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to move on from just running a rink now into youth hockey, and we'll get into the cost of youth hockey, especially if you're in an area which is more for-profit driven in terms of how the rinks are run. But I just want your perspective on, excluding USA Hockey, because we're going to get to USA Hockey a little bit later in the conversation. What's wrong with youth hockey these days, and where do you have a lot of passion around fixing some of these things? And yes, we only have half an hour more to have this conversation, not 4 hours. So I know you can.
I'm not sure I can do it without talking about USA Hockey.
Okay.
Look, you have a couple of problems. Number one problem is the cost of construction of an ice rink is uneconomic. Okay, so the number one problem for the growth of the sport is you can't justify building an ice rink. Before we started Black Bear, I looked at the failed predecessors, because I remember I met with people at USA Hockey that said no one can do what you're trying to do, and Family Golf failed, and ARC failed, and others have failed, and it's because they try to build new ice rinks. people will rent ice for the same price, whether it's a brand new building or it's an old building, and therefore the returns don't work unless you're the second or third owner of an ice rink. And so it's very hard to see the sport grow unless municipalities are willing to spend lots of money with a bad return. And so hockey's not a growth sport, right? Like, bottom line, it's not a growth sport. It's you've actually seen, I don't know, since 2019 to today, I can't remember the exact USA Hockey numbers, but maybe you've seen a growth of just under 1% in total number of under 18 participants, and that's nationwide across everything. And if you include girls, which actually is growing faster, right? Boys has actually declined in the aggregate for U18 hockey players. Part of that is lack of new rinks. Part of it is the cost of the sport. It's a very expensive sport, and taking care of rinks is expensive. So if you don't have growth in participation, which there is another piece. There's only one group that can grow participation in hockey, and that's the NHL, and they're structured in a way that it just doesn't work, right? We can talk about the NHL and USA Hockey separately, but so if you don't have growth in participants at all, I think total youth hockey participation over the past 5 years has been 7,000 new people playing the sport, according to USA Hockey, on a base of 400,000. It's irrelevant, right? Like, yeah. So your costs go up. There's 4 basic costs in an ice rink. There's labor, there's utilities, there's taxes, and there's the cost of taking care of the building. I'm excluding insurance, which so it's really 5 basic costs. They're going up every year with inflation, 5 to 10% a year these days, maybe, if you're lucky, 3%. And if you don't have growth in participants, there's only one thing you can do, and that's raise prices to keep pace with the cost of inflation. So that makes it a very, very expensive sport. And that's before you travel, right? So tuition is high, and then you got to travel all over the place. So it's a difficult sport for a lot of families to play. And so that's a structural impediment to the sport. I think we've taken a lot of steps to lessen the burden for people. Our leagues were centered around the premise that we control all these buildings in these areas, and people were traveling all over the country. And particularly after COVID, we wanted to get the cost down. So we said, all right, let's make our leagues where you play everybody in this region. And if you're a lower level player, if you're an A or a B player and you don't want to travel as much, you want to keep your costs down, no problem. I can give you a schedule that's local, and you play the same teams maybe a few more times than you would have previously. If you're a super high level player and you're not as concerned about costs, you just want high level competition, AAA, AA, we can give you that as well. So our leagues are centered around the premise. The customers have different needs depending upon the level, depending upon their goals. And so that's how we're tackling running youth hockey programs. The other thing we do is we hire great people and we get out of their way, right? So we have like a 2-tiered structure, not 2-tiered. It's sort of parallel structure. We have our operations people who run our rinks and run our buildings, and then we have our hockey coaches, and we have a velvet glove approach with our hockey directors. We hire amazing people. They don't want to hear from me. They don't want to be managed by me. They'll talk to me, but we let them do their thing. And fortunately we have wonderful people in that area. I think the biggest impediment to growth in the sport is the structure of USA Hockey and the way the NHL approaches growth. They would have to have some very serious structural changes to make a difference.
All right, so let's get into it since we're already here. So, what is the biggest way that USA Hockey is limiting youth hockey's potential in the U.S. right now, and therefore, why do some organizations perceive you as a threat because you're challenging those traditional ways of doing things?
So, I mean, I don't know how much you know about the USA Hockey structure, but there's I don't know, a dozen districts, and underneath those dozen districts, there are 34 affiliates. And then that's the volunteer structure of USA Hockey. They will never come out and say this, but it was structured this way because USA Hockey, in effect, is a big insurance company. They provide secondary insurance for people playing the sport. And they've created this barrier that if you're a non-USA Hockey organization, you can't play a USA Hockey organization, or it invalidates the insurance. No other sport has anything like that. Lacrosse doesn't have that. Baseball, football, basketball. Nobody has it. So you must register with USA Hockey and be sanctioned in order to have a team. So I can't just wake up, be a really passionate dad or mom, and go start a hockey team. I have to somehow be sanctioned by one of these 34 affiliates inside these 12 districts, all with volunteer people, in order to have a team. Now, you have this group out in Colorado Springs that I have gotten along with the vast majority of them. They're the paid professionals, but they're in many ways powerless because the affiliates and the districts are unaccountable. They have a voting mechanism, but I mean, so did Chicago in 1932 have a voting mechanism, and that's what it's like. There are a couple of affiliates that we have very, very good relationships with, like the Atlantic District, and they're a more open district. They have a more, come forward and play. We're going to try and find a way for everybody to get along. And then you have other districts and affiliates that are just an absolute nightmare. And I could take a cynical approach and say they're corrupt, just flat out corrupt, feathering their own nest and feathering the nest of their partners. Or I could say they think they're there as gatekeepers for the good of the game. But boy, that entails a level of arrogance that they know better than everybody else in the country, that because every affiliate has different rules, and the idea that what went on in Colorado this past spring was just outrageous, where a newly elected affiliate president decided to strip the Colorado Thunderbirds and Rampage of their tier 1 status. I mean, it basically bankrupts those businesses. It destroys the livelihoods of those people. I mean, who are they to have the right to do that? It's utterly outrageous, not to mention like lunacy. The Colorado Thunderbirds have more people playing the NHL as alumni than any other organization possibly in the United States, certainly west of the Mississippi. And so these affiliate officers and presidents are, again, they're unaccountable, and USA Hockey in many ways is powerless, and they can't do anything about it. And so that structure is deeply broken, deeply flawed, and may need to be completely disrupted.
And so so let's get into that. So how are you disrupting that in terms of offering an alternative? Because, the most democratic / capitalistic way to do this is provide a separate solution that works. But obviously in hockey, when it comes to AAA or youth hockey, you need scale. So how are you going about that?
Well, we've got scale. I mean, we have, we started the Tier 1 Hockey Federation. It's the largest Tier 1 league in the country. We probably have 20 to 25% of all the AAA clubs in the country as members. Our Tier 2 boys league is, probably close to 800 teams. That's also pushing 20 or greater percent of Tier 2 hockey in the country. And we're heavily concentrated in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast and the Midwest. And I also am interim commissioner of the USPHL, which is the largest junior league in the country, and they operate outside of USA Hockey. And so we could flip a switch tomorrow and leave USA Hockey. I mean, we do not need to be in USA Hockey. USA Hockey does a lot of wonderful things. There's some very, very good people at USA Hockey. The folks that run all the international programs, including, the NCDC team and the US Olympic team and all the U18 and U17 teams, they do a great job, girls, boys, you name it. We can debate whether or not they're the most economically efficient with what they spend to do it. I think that's a nit, that's a nuance, but they do generally a very good job with those programs. Some of the other programs they do, I think they're important, they're nice to have, but really where this all breaks down is this affiliate structure. And there's a national championship. It's a 64 team national championship for the boys, and slightly smaller for the girls. I mean, we put on events with 300-400 teams. I'm not worried about putting on a tournament. It's really just going to come down to, it's not my goal to leave USA Hockey. I'm not looking for that to be the legacy of Black Bear Sports Group. I have a lot of other things that I prefer to be the legacy, but we cannot be in a constant war with these various affiliates where I spend 30 to 50% of my time trying to, ward off insane behavior by the affiliates. I'll give you an example. In Connecticut, we woke up last spring and they said that that mites are not allowed to play up at Squirt. Totally reasonable policy if that's what USA Hockey wants to do. Not quite sure why Connecticut is going to create their own rule that doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. But okay, if you want to make that rule, you have that right to make that rule. Except what they did was they said it applies to everybody but Mid-Fairfield. Like, how is that possible? Like,
selective enforcement is what you're saying?
It's not even selective enforcement. It's just cronyism. It's just corrupt behavior. And so fortunately, USA Hockey stepped in and they moved one of our programs over to literally moved a Connecticut-based program to Massachusetts, because that was going to be the last straw for me. We were going to leave USA Hockey because we can't operate where we're at a competitive disadvantage to other programs in our state. And so, we deal with these kinds of things over and over and over. I mean, I could spend the entire time of us talking together about various behavior like that mid-Fairfield situation with USA Hockey affiliates. You wake up every single day, how are they going to basically screw us? And, you know, we are a for-profit business. I was out at the USA Hockey meetings in Denver, and I sat there and I listened to the New England representative at the youth council say the single biggest problem that they had in New England, 6 states, probably close to 40 or 50 million people who live in New England. And the single biggest problem they have in New England is the cost of ice in Connecticut. Now, I'm the only guy who owns more than one rink in Connecticut, so that was clearly a shot at me. The single biggest problem they said they had in Florida was for-profit rink operators, and nobody said a word about it. Nobody stood up and said, hey, look, we got to get along. We have for-profits, not-for-profits. We all have to get along. And so it's literally just an assault on for-profit operators by these affiliates. I don't believe that's where USA Hockey sits. I have a very nice relationship with Pat Keller, who is the executive director. We talk all the time. We try to work together, but I just don't know what's going to happen with these affiliates, because it cannot continue like this. And if it means we have to leave USA Hockey, so be it.
Gotcha. All right. So let's move on to something a little bit more positive.
I'm sorry.
And let's talk about girls hockey. So you made a huge investment in the National Girls Hockey League. It's a big growing area. You know, I've tracked them for the last couple of years quite closely. We have all their events listed on our website. Maybe just talk about the growth of girls hockey and your passion for that as well.
Yeah, look, we are dedicated to doing everything we can to grow the sport. So we've done a number of things in addition to just girls hockey. So we have our own learn to play hockey program. We buy something, we put 5,000-6,000 kids a year into free gear that we buy ourselves outside of any NHL learn to play program. We're just giving away the gear to the kids to get them on the ice. So we do a number of different things like that. We set up a foundation where we give away cash, really, to subsidize tuitions for people who can't afford to pay tuition. We've given away close to $250,000 to date from that foundation. And in a different way, girls hockey is a similar type of growth of the game investment, because if you just look at the pure economics of girls hockey, it's a much smaller subset of people who play the sport. It's somewhere around 90,000 registrants in girls hockey versus 330,000 plus or minus youth players, boys players. And so it's much smaller. And so if you look at the economics of, do I devote ice to girls versus to boys, you wouldn't do it, but I don't believe in that. And so I believe that we should treat both girls and boys equally, and we should invest just as much money, whether it's locker rooms in our buildings or ice time or coaches, to girls as we do to boys. And so we have one of the only Tier 1 clubs in the Mid-Atlantic. There are only 4 Tier 1 clubs in the Mid-Atlantic. Princeton Tiger Lilies. We own and operate that. We have the largest, if not, maybe we're the second largest Tier 2 clubs under the Tiger Lily name. So we've invested big dollars. We hired incredible people. You know Shelley Looney, you brought her up beforehand. We hired Shelley, helped relocate her back to New Jersey to run that program and build it. And it all feeds up to our tournament business and our league business. When we started our boys Tier 2 business, we started a girls Tier 2 business. We kind of do everything hand in hand. We're equally large in the girls side. It's just smaller relative to the boys side. And then the NGHL, Catherine Kehoe, who is the founder of the NGHL, was deeply devoted to girls hockey, and we were lucky enough to be able to buy it and carry on her legacy in the girls hockey tournament business. Leslie Case is one of our key people. I know you know Leslie, helps run it with Jeremy Dallow, and they do a fantastic job. But it's not just the girls tournament business for us. It's everything underneath it. It's running girls programs in our buildings, feeding up to our leagues and our tournament side. So it's very important to us. My daughter would kill me if I wasn't spending as much time on girls as I am on boys. And it's good business. So it's a wonderful thing we're doing.
Perfect. All right. So thank you for going into all that detail, because now I understand, the bigger picture on your investments there, and also the scope of the stuff that you're doing. Now let's talk about junior hockey. Junior hockey is the pathway to college hockey. I've seen presentations recently saying basically, 99% of all college players play junior hockey somewhere. And so maybe you own 3 junior teams.
Seven.
7? Okay. Well, sorry. You own junior teams at each of the different levels, Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So didn't realize you had all those teams. But obviously you had tremendous success with the Youngstown Phantoms, who won the USHL championship last year. The Maine Black Bears had an amazing season this year. Maybe just talk about, why you're so involved in junior hockey, and from a business perspective and just from a hockey development perspective?
Yeah, so my overall focus and perspective on our hockey business, including different than the rinks, but the hockey business, whether it's junior or youth, is we've got to be good. We've got to win. If we don't win, we're just going to be seen as a group trying to make money in youth sports, and that's really not what we're about. We're about trying to bring high quality to the operations that we're involved in. And so on the junior side, I didn't really know much about junior hockey until we sort of inherited a junior team. We bought one of the rinks up in New Jersey, and at the same time, we were given the opportunity to buy 50% of the Youngstown Phantoms. I'm co-owner of the Phantoms with the Fireworks family, the Zoldan family out of Youngstown. They've been unbelievable partners of ours, and so I didn't know much about it, but it quickly became apparent to me that having junior hockey and having successful junior hockey would feed our youth, and in particular our midget programs. And so that only works because we are deeply committed to promoting from within. And so if all we did was own junior hockey teams and none of our players on our youth teams ever made it up to the junior programs, then that would be a different story. But for example, on our Maryland Black Bears, who made it to the finals this year and made it to the semifinals the year before in the Robertson Cup, we had 8 players from Maryland who we played Team Maryland growing up and played on the Maryland Black Bears. When my kids were growing up, kids were leaving at 12 and 13 years old because there was no pathway to juniors, no pathway to college. The stats are really quite stunning. 75% of all kids who commit to play D1 college hockey commit in juniors, which means the average age of a kid who's committing is well over 18 years old, because that's when the kids are typically in juniors. And so you have to have a pathway to juniors, and they couldn't see it in Maryland until we brought the Maryland Black Bears here. And we've done the same with our NCDC teams in Mercer and out on Long Island with the PAL organization. And so if you promote from within, the customers are very smart. They're very savvy. They know if you're just putting things up on social media versus if you're actually promoting from within. And so our coaches have been great, from the GMs down to our president of our junior hockey operations, Andrew Goldman, who's a superstar. They know my goal is to promote from within. All else equal, or even a little bit beyond all else equal, we want to promote our people. And so that's where junior hockey fits in from our side. But at the end of the day, if we're not winning, nobody wants to play for us. So it took us a little while to figure this out, how to win. But we have an extraordinary staff of scouts and GMs. Some of the best in the business. Jason Deskins, Ryan Kosecki, Jeff Cox, Clint Millimock, just on and on. Our staff is amazing. And we invest in our programs. We invest in our coaches. We pay real money to our coaches, and we invest in our facilities. And that's how you start developing players. If you don't have the equipment and, little things, if you're, how you feed the kids, what the billets are like, what the gym looks like, what your off-ice training regimen is, who's your skills coach, your goalie coach. And so there's no one magic silver bullet on the junior hockey side. It's a lot of little decisions that make a difference, that make the players feel like they're being taken care of. When we got involved in Youngstown, they struggled to attract kids from Minnesota, or struggled to attract kids from certain parts of the country. Now we like to think we're sort of the one of the go-to places in the USHL, because we really take care of our players, and we've had success on the ice because of it. It's very hard to win a championship. We were extraordinarily lucky, and a lot of things fell into place and the like, but we're competitive now, year in and year out. And I think people notice that.
Perfect. I just listened to a podcast with Ryan Kosecki, who's the GM of the Youngstown, and he was just talking about how that you guys are the best ownership group because you invest so much at every level, whether it's the development coach, the goalie coach, the training coach, you name it. At the junior level, they're not lacking. None of the players are not lacking for anything, and so it's all about the investment. So now let's get on to a little bit more controversial topic, because apparently you like talking about some things that might be controversial. The USHL is. I grew up in Canada, and I grew up on CHL hockey. I mean, I watched a huge amount of QMJHL hockey and OHL hockey growing up. And I had no idea about the USHL and how many, especially today, how many NHL players come from the USHL. And yet very little coverage. I've tried, I used to watch some on Hockey TV when the package was around, and I got it part of my subscription. But now it's very hard to find USHL unless you have a Flow membership to watch that hockey. And I know you've had concerns as to, you've raised the issue that the NHL network should be showing the USHL a lot more on it, especially given that, like last year, Youngstown had, more draft picks. Was the team that had the most draft picks of any team in last year's draft. So what's your perspective as to, what would it take to get the USHL greater exposure on more mainstream television?
Yeah, look, I think for a lot of years, the USHL had great product on the ice, but was perceived to perhaps, have some dysfunctional things going on among its partners and the like. And that has long since passed. We have a really cohesive ownership group. We have great leadership in our front office staff. I mean, really quality people. And so in addition to having great product on the ice, we have great product off the ice. And unfortunately, the legacy structure of how the NHL funds the various CHL programs versus the USHL is unequal, like deeply unequal. And as a result, there's unequal support. And so, public numbers, they're giving close to $10 million a year to USA Hockey. And I can't talk about how much USA Hockey gives to us, but it's well below what the NHL gives directly to each of the individual Canadian hockey leagues. And so financially, there's a disparity, and we can debate, is that right, is that wrong, should the money be going to the NTDP the way it is? We can debate all that. What there is no debate about is, why is the USHL not on the NHL network? I sat there, I was practically nauseous watching the Memorial Cup on the NHL network, and we can't even get the Clark Cup playoffs on the NHL network. The Youngstown Phantoms, Muskegon, we've already committed. We would pay, nobody has to come out of pocket for any money. I will pay the production costs. I've heard it's $25,000 a game. I don't care what it is. I'll pay the production costs, as would Peter Herms from Muskegon, pay the production costs. Muskegon and Youngstown for our home games during the wintertime, we'd be happy to pay for it to be on the NHL network. So there's literally no cost. All we need is somebody to pick up the phone and say, we'll do it. Unfortunately, the NHL doesn't run the NHL network. Major League Baseball has some agreement where they run it. And so we try to get a hold of them and they won't do it. And so I think it's outrageous that the NHL is not stepping up and really trying to support the #1 junior hockey league in the United States. I mean, they need US-based fans. They need US-based players. And that they're not pushing us to be on the NHL network, I simply can't understand it. And then second, I have a big gripe about on the NHL network. Every time a kid from NTDP is drafted, they literally categorize them as NTDP, not USHL. It's not like when a kid from the London Junior Knights is drafted that it's the London Junior Knights and categorize him that way. It's the Ontario Hockey League. So as a result, they artificially suppress our draft picks by virtue of that categorization of the kids from the national team. And I give the national team a lot of credit. Could they play in another league? Sure, they could play in the OHL if they wanted to, but they play in the USHL. So why the hell are we not getting credit for those 20 kids, 18 kids every single year that are being drafted? Because let's be clear, if we wanted to take those 20 kids and just draft them ourselves, they probably, a big chunk of them would be on USHL teams. So we're being unfairly penalized when you look at our draft stats versus the CHL leagues. We're being unfairly penalized because for some crazy reason, the NHL network does not force them to say it's a USHL draft pick every time a national team kid is drafted. So those are my big two complaints. And look, there's nobody else with our scale. I know it's controversial when I raise these issues, but somebody has got to push back on these issues. Otherwise, they're never going to change. And so a lot of these discussions happen privately behind the scenes and nothing gets done. I only raise them because you got to shine a little bit of a light on these problems, or else no one will make a change.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for explaining all that, because I didn't really understand all the details and how all the rules work. And now when you talk about the payments that the NHL makes to the CHL, now that makes a little bit more sense about how that works. I know you've probably already thought about this already, but I love ESPN Plus, and they're broadcasting the draft, so maybe there's another opportunity for you there. So we got to keep. Go ahead.
That could be the next place we go, right? So if the NHL Network's we're going to explore that as well.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep moving. All right. So I've written a lot about my hockey rankings, the pros and cons and things that do well. You've started your own with your own hockey power rankings. Maybe just talk to some folks about it. Talk a little bit about it. Here's one thing that I've seen personally is I have personally seen a coach to my hockey rankings so that they made it to nationals. And quite frankly, it worked because they coached to it at the detriment of development of some of the players. What's your perspective?
Happens all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen parents go crazy when a team's down 5-4 and they pull the goalie because it's going to hurt their MyHockeyRankings. I mean, that's insane, right? You're encouraging a team to lose a game so it doesn't hurt your MyHockeyRankings. And so, look, I think that there are two issues with MyHockeyRankings. Number one, the at-large bid for nationals for the national bound teams is largely determined based on MyHockeyRankings, and so it forces teams to schedule games in a way that you can literally game your rankings. If you play inside of a bubble and you play the same teams over and over again, even if you lose most of your games, your rankings will be artificially high. You see that over and over again. I can give you countless examples. So the national tournament with those at-large bids is definitely a major issue. The second issue is they will not publish how they actually do their rankings. So there's a lot of speculation about what is the starting score that a team has. Is it based on prior year's rankings or is it based on the current year's schedule? And so nobody really knows because they won't publish their algorithm about how they do it. We publish our algorithm for the Hockey Power Rankings. And so when you look at ours, we try to compare and contrast where the rankings are. And you see, there's a lot of similarities, right? It's not like we're reinventing the wheel here, but there are a lot of ones that make no sense whatsoever. And so the biggest difference between our rankings and their rankings is we don't give you credit for losing games. Like there should be no credit for having a small goal differential. You should get credit for strength of schedule and winning. Right. So if you're a team in California and you're playing, 14U AAA and you're beating up on 16U AA teams that are lower ranked, but you're beating them, you should get credit for that. You shouldn't have a problem because your goal differential is bad or because you're playing, a 16 team instead of, 14 team from Michigan. And so this idea that they encourage you to lose all your games by one goal rather than win some and lose some, but play where you live and play locally, it's an unhealthy formula. I think the rankings are great. I think competition is a good thing. I think it's a healthy thing. I think the rankings help people to have a good experience. When we do our tournaments, we try to use their rankings, our rankings to improve the quality of the experience. But this idea that they will not publish what their algorithm is and that they emphasize goal differential over wins and losses, I just think it's a bad model. So our model's different. I'm not expecting them to go away. I just want to give people a choice. Everything we do is give people a choice.
Gotcha. And I'm curious, have you actually compared your rankings like this past season of how they actually ended up in the actual tournament? Like how they performed and how did that look?
Yeah, I mean, our rankings, we published it. It's all on social media. We generally did better than they did with the success of ours, but they had some where they were better, some where ours were better. All we're trying to do is give people a choice about how to look at things. And if they continue with the at-large bids at USA Hockey, then they should have two rankings to choose from, just like they do in college sports, right? There's the API, coaches poll, AP. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways you can look at things. We just want there to be choices where people are not going crazy with their schedule just solely based on MyHockeyRankings. That's it. Yeah. It's just a choice. We're not expecting hockey to go away.
Yeah. So you're basically saying is stop gaming the system based on the algorithm is what you're saying. So I gotcha. All right. Couple quick topics that I want to get through because I want to get to some things on the parents stuff. Last question on live streaming. So one thing which affects probably everybody that's listening to this podcast or watching this podcast is, folks using LiveBarn. I know you're thinking about another opportunity to come out. I'm assuming it's probably related to using Spideo. Pixelot is coming out, USA Hockey TV. What's your perspective on live streaming and how it can be improved?
Yeah, look, as we started the beginning of this podcast, I said that hockey's not a growth engine. So one of the ways that we're able to keep a lid on prices is by capturing the other areas where there's profit in our buildings. And so we publish our prices. There's no other group in the country that publishes their prices. You can go online, see every one of our clubs, exactly how we price our product. We're not raising prices in a crazy way. We raise our prices 2-3%, maybe 4% in some markets, but way below what inflation was this past year. And so one of the ways we're able to do it is by capturing other revenue sources, whether it's merchandise or in this case, broadcasting. There are two different types of products out there. One is the surveillance camera always on model. And then there's more the flow hockey model, a standing camera, and you pick a game, you publish a game. And we think there's a need for something in between. We think that having a fully integrated broadcasting model with analytics and coaches tools and ability to clip video and have a higher quality production is something the market is lacking. And with everything we've done, we've tried to look at what do people complain about that's out there and how can we improve it and also capture some of the revenue in the process. And so we'll be making an announcement in a couple of weeks about Black Bear TV. We'll be rolling it out to all of our rinks, and hopefully people will like the product, and who knows where it goes from there.
Beautiful. All right. I look forward to seeing what it's all about and then comparing it. Like you said, there are pros and cons to the, always on system. And then there's also pros and cons to the just get the individual game. So I look forward to seeing what the hybrid solution looks like. All right. Last question. So you've been through all the stuff on the hockey side as both a business person and a parent. What advice do you have for all these parents going through the crazy world of hockey that, maybe has a 12 or a 13-year-old and they're listening to this podcast going, oh my God, what are the next 5 or 6 years going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is you have to take it year by year, because what happens when you're 12 may or may not be relevant to what happens when your kid is 17. And so my child almost got cut from his one of his Bantam teams, and they gave him this equivalent of a practice jersey, and he put it on his wall and said never again, and he made that his goal for the rest of his hockey career. But he could have quit that year too. So you just have to take it year by year, because when high school comes and when kids are going off to college and your kid is in juniors, they're either going to want to keep playing or not. It's not going to make a difference what you want them to do. And so we always started every year with an idea. Our son's going to play 1 year, and then we're going to see what happens. If you want your child to play college hockey, you've got to be patient. Commitments happen later and later and later. It's a very small percentage of kids who commit when they're in high school, when they're playing midget hockey, and kids change their commitments all the time. It happens routinely on the Youngstown Phantoms all the way down to lower levels. And so you just have to be patient, because you may commit at 16 years old. I can't tell you how many kids we've had commit at 16 and they end up never playing college hockey because things change. And if you're not patient, you're going to put a lot of pressure on your child, and it's going to be a problem. And then the last thing I would say is probably the single most important thing in the development of a young hockey player is what they do off the ice, whether it's fitness or nutrition, the gym, you name it. That has as much an impact on their success in junior hockey, which is really what matters if you're trying to move on to college, as anything else. And so a lot of people don't understand how important it is to be strong and fit and be a gym rat, really be a workout rat. And most of the kids that are successful in college hockey are gym rats. And so, lastly, I would say, the mental health of the children matters a lot. Keep them home as long as you can keep them home. Keep them involved in other things, diverse social activities, athletic activities. Keep them young for as long as you can, because, they grow up quickly. The minute they go to juniors, they're on their own. It's a grind. And if they're in a good place when they get to juniors, they're likely going to have more success than if they're burned out by the time they get to juniors. So those are my sort of high level advice.
And you know it firsthand from every possible angle. So, Murry, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This was incredible. The amount of topics that we covered, hearing, all about your, how you got into all this hockey operation stuff, and then obviously your perspective on, the real world of youth hockey today. Just really appreciate you taking the time and not being shy about sharing your thoughts.
I'm never shy. And look, the reason why I did this is what you do for girls and women's hockey is extraordinary. Anybody who devotes as much time as you have to the girls game is somebody I want to support. And that's why I decided to come on here today. And I thank you for all you've done.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. I really want to thank Murry for coming on the podcast. As he mentioned, he does not do many public interviews, so I really appreciate him making the time and also being so candid during our conversation. There are many areas of the hockey world that I now understand a lot better based on this conversation, including running a rink, how USA Hockey operates, and how junior hockey works in the US. You can learn more about Murry and Black Bear Sports on their website using links in the show notes. Introducing the Champs App messaging tool. Champs App messaging is the fastest, easy way to send error-free messages to coaches. The Champs app messaging tool ensures the coach's name, email, and school are correct without the need to look online and find each coach's contact information. With the Champs app messaging tool, you can choose from a variety of email templates to send. For example, one template informs coaches about upcoming events or tournaments, and another lets a coach know about new videos added to your Champs app profile. Each template automatically populates the message with the coach's name and school and inserts personal information from your Champs app profile. This way, you can be sure the emails do not have errors. Personalize each message further to make it uniquely yours. Experience the convenience of the Champs app messaging tool yourself by logging into your Champs app account. For a limited time, we are offering the Champs app messaging tool at a low introductory price for an annual subscription. As we add more amazing features to the messaging tool over the coming weeks and months, these new features will be included in your annual subscription. So get started today by logging into your Champs app account to try out the new Champs app messaging tool and easily send error-free emails to coaches. Subscribe today before the price goes up.